Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful day out there so far. Got an update here for you on the weather, and we do actually have a pretty impactful storm, at least for parts of the country, on the way here, really through the end of this week that could bring big-time snow totals, as well as the threat of some severe weather by the time we get into this weekend. We are also going to talk about the long range a little bit and kind of give you an update on what's on the horizon because things are relatively slow for many of us right now, kind of in the near term. So we'll definitely take a look ahead. We're also going to briefly touch on the tropics, but luckily not too much to talk about in the tropics as things have relatively calmed down for the most part. And hopefully, if we're lucky, we're kind of done here with landfalling systems in the United States. Not saying that we are, but there is a good shot that we are here as we kind of round out October. Alrighty, well, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so, like the video, and all the other usual good stuff. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into things and kind of start talking about the weather. All right, so we're going to, again, start with the tropics and make this kind of short, sweet, and simple. We do have two areas technically to watch from the National Hurricane Center. I will circle both of them. And they are relatively healthy looking on satellite, especially this area out into the main development region of the Atlantic. You can really see that spin with it as it moves generally towards the Caribbean and towards the islands of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, and even the Northern Virgin Islands here through the British Virgin Islands. But luckily, the chances of development with that system and the other system out here into the Caribbean itself have really come down in the model guidance. And because of that, the National Hurricane Center has dropped the chances of development for both areas here within the next 7 days. So currently, only running a low chance of development, again, from now through next week at a 30% chance for this area that is going to move through Hispaniola, and then a 20% chance for this area down towards Central America. So again, both areas have come down in threat level. Both areas are still going to bring rain to their respective tracks, but again, not expecting any kind of surge or damaging winds or any of the other things that you might get with a stronger tropical system. Really just rain on the way for both of these areas. All right, I can show that to you here just on our model guidance, our European ensemble members. Again, a lot of them do kind of try to flare this up, but again, very weak and kind of still just in open wave territory here on both of these models as this tracks generally, again, through both of these regions. So not really a threat to the United States and anyone watching in these areas. Again, really just some rain is the most you're going to get out of that. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on through the lower 48 currently, and then we will kind of time out the rest of the week and then start looking ahead at next week and beyond and kind of give you an idea of what you can maybe expect here through the end of October here into the lower 48. Now, currently on satellite imagery, we do have a storm system off the East Coast here, just off the coast of the Outer Banks. This is producing some pretty good rainfall as that fired up overnight, but luckily, most of that rainfall is offshore. The storm itself is offshore and will continue to track generally, excuse me, sorry, I'm still fighting a little bit of a cold here. We'll continue to track generally offshore though here through the next couple of days. So not really going to see any impacts out of that, although we did last night with some pretty good rainfall again out into the Outer Banks. All right, out west, that's where our other storm system is. You'll notice this big time trough or dip in the jet stream beginning to work on through, and this is going to fire up a pretty good storm system as well that's going to kind of dive on through the Rockies and then eventually get trapped down kind of towards the Four Corners region before eventually finally crossing the country. But by that point, as a pretty weak storm system that really isn't going to be supported in the upper levels at that point, and likely will not really bring rain far east from the Rockies, although we could see some severe weather into portions of New Mexico, Texas, and maybe even Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado, which we will briefly touch on here in just a moment. But again, currently speaking, nothing crazy showing up on satellite, and that's the same story for radar imagery as well as our watches, warnings, and advisories. And we'll go ahead and start in the east here and then work west. Again, the only rain here east of the Mississippi or precipitation that we're really seeing is just offshore of the mid-Atlantic here. Again, you'll notice this rain falling, even a little bit of it still clipping portions of the Outer Banks this morning. But by the time we get to this afternoon, again, this is going to continue to work offshore. So definitely bringing some cloudy cover here through the Delmarva, probably even into the Jersey Shore, into the Outer Banks. But in terms of rainfall, it's going to be hard to come by here for the rest of today. We do have a couple showers as well down here into the Straits of Florida, but really further down towards Cuba, not so much the Keys. So again, not really a United States concern there. Now, in terms of watches, warnings, and advisories in the east, a lot of freeze warnings and frost advisories up. Freeze warnings in the kind of darker bluish purplish color, frost advisories in those baby blue colors, and getting pretty far south. Birmingham, Alabama, Greenville, Spartanburg, Charlotte, the whole I-85 corridor with those frost advisories again. As we did get pretty chilly last night. In fact, portions of upstate South Carolina got below freezing for the first time of the year, as that cold air really did some wonders there in terms of radiational cooling overnight, which really helped to lower those temperatures and probably had pretty widespread frost, I imagine, in a lot of these communities. So really currently cold air is just the big story here east of the Mississippi and really just east of the Rockies in general. Now, up into the northern Midwest and into the northern Great Plains, red flag warnings. This is a concern I have for really much of the country through the end of October, and that is the potential of fire hazards or forest fires or, really anything burning in general. Here, as we go through the end of the month, I am expecting drought conditions to worsen, and tomorrow morning I'll pull up the drought monitor map. I didn't today just because we get an update this afternoon, so if I showed it to you this morning, it would have been completely different by tomorrow. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, but again, drought conditions are beginning to worsen pretty significantly here through much of the country, and a lot of these regions that are in kind of rough drought are going to continue the trend through maybe as much as the next 10 plus days. So that's going to be a big time story for a lot of folks. And it is what I would generally consider wildfire season here through a big portion of the country, specifically the southeast. October, November through the Appalachia chain is generally the time that we get most of those forest fires. And this year may be no different. All right, out west. A lot of precipitation again as that trough begins to work on through. We're beginning to see a lot of that lift here through these regions, and it is going to be bringing some impactful weather. So already seeing a pretty good amount of mountain snow here and valley rain through Utah, up through Wyoming and Montana. In fact, we have winter storm warnings up for a lot of folks for the first time this year down through the mountains of Utah, again up towards Yellowstone with those winter storm warnings. And then winter weather advisories even for the mountains here through Montana. So a sign of changing seasons, a sign of wintry weather on the horizon, and definitely a sign of, just kind of that transition from what would normally be more summer-like weather into more winter-like weather. All right, so taking a look at just the overall pattern right now, again, we do have this little storm off the East Coast that is being kind of bumped up by that trough. We also have a much bigger trough out west. Again, that is bringing a lot of that cool air and going to kind of form our storm system as well as we go through this weekend. Now, in between both of these areas, we have this big time ridge that is beginning to flex its muscles. So while it is very cool and chilly for a lot of folks right now, I am expecting a gradual warming trend through the weekend and probably even through next week as that ridge takes hold. Again, those temperatures are going to slowly rise. Now, it's not going to be hot by any means. We are getting towards the end of October, and this isn't a ridge that is placed in a position that would maybe funnel, humid Gulf air northward, but it is going to bring our temperatures more towards mild territory compared to the very chilly territory that we are in right now. And all this is going to continue through the week, and this gets us to Saturday. You'll notice, again, this big time ridge really flexing its muscles over the east. As that's occurring, we get kind of this cutoff low to break off from our current trough. That's going to dive down into the Four Corners region and again bring some continued mountain snow as well as the potential for some severe weather, which we will touch on as well here in the kind of medium run. So that's kind of the theme here through the weekend, and I'll even move this all the way into early next week, and you'll notice really more of the same before eventually that storm system kind of tries to scoot on out of here by the middle of next week. All right, let's take a look at radar over the next 48 hours or so, and we'll start in the east. So this afternoon, again, kind of a glancing blow by this coastal storm, just a little bit of rain potentially into the Outer Banks, maybe extreme southeastern Virginia and into the Delmarva. Could see a couple showers, but probably more cloudy than anything through those regions, while we have big-time sun elsewhere. We'll get through this through the afternoon. Again, that coastal storm continuing to spin offshore. This gets us into overnight tonight, and again, still all clear east of the Mississippi. No rainfall. Maybe cannot rule out a couple of showers, maybe clipping Nantucket, Cape Cod, by the time we get into overnight tonight as that coastal low, again, skirts, and we often see this with these storm systems, just good old-fashioned geography. Obviously, this portion of Massachusetts kind of jutting out a little bit, so, just a higher likelihood that these coastal storms will bring rain to you. Also, maybe a couple showers down through Key West this afternoon and into the Keys in general. But again, we'll get this into Friday afternoon. I mean, it is beautiful, folks. Really not much going on, again, east of the Mississippi. You'll notice back west, things go downhill a little bit, and we'll talk about that next. But again, just about everyone having a pretty nice stretch, and get out there and enjoy it, because we've had some Octobers that have been very crazy in the weather department. So maybe get out there and enjoy this one, why it's a little bit nicer so far. All right, high temperatures this afternoon. Now, give or take a couple degrees on this, obviously, but generally speaking, I mean, it's going to be chilly. I got the sweater on for the first time this year. I'll probably even wear some blue jeans this afternoon, because again, it's just one of those days that it's probably going to catch people by surprise, with highs only getting up into the low 60s through the Carolinas, Georgia, even as far south as Alabama and Mississippi, struggling to crack 70, struggling to crack 60 here through the Ohio River Valley, highs in the mid 50s from Ohio back through Indiana, Kentucky, and then highs only into the 40s and 50s through the Northeast, including Syracuse up through the Finger Lakes, the Catskills, and then back even towards the I-95 corridor, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, highs in the upper 50s, lower 60s. Same story for you folks down into DC and Baltimore. So definitely kind of a chilly stretch, and even colder than that in the mountains through this afternoon. Tomorrow morning, really just similar to this morning, probably a couple degrees warmer. So let's say you were 35 this morning, maybe 37 tomorrow. And again, it's going to depend on your exact location, but same air mass in place, but beginning to modify a little bit as it kind of sits over some of these warmer ground temperatures here through the rest of the week. And then tomorrow afternoon, same story, much like today, although a couple degrees warmer for most folks. So that's kind of the theme there. And that gets us into overnight Friday into Saturday. All right, out west. So again, big time storm system out here. Really the big storyline in general. This afternoon, mountain snow beginning to pick up from Idaho, Wyoming into Montana. So kind of the northern Rockies getting in on that mountain snow and valley rain today. So again, this is not an everyone snowstorm. These very low elevations are not going to see the snow, but plenty of people will see the snow. And this is really going to jumpstart ski season and kind of get it into full swing here. Continuing this afternoon. And again, this snow could be heavy at times in places. Do not be surprised at all to see that. Just that's kind of the story here. It continues to snow in the mountains, continues to rain in the valleys here. This is overnight tonight into Friday morning. Heavy snow through the mountains of Utah, into the mountains of Colorado tomorrow morning, and into Friday afternoon. And you'll even notice here kind of almost a line of storms gets going here on kind of the southern side of this low pressure as this front begins to swing on through. So don't be surprised to see a couple rumbles of thunder maybe through Arizona, New Mexico for our Friday afternoon. Again, the higher elevations getting snow, the lower elevations maybe even some torrential downpours, so very heavy rain in spots. And that just continues here. And I'll mention here, Friday afternoon starts what could be a little bit of a severe weather threat here. So you'll notice, first of all, I'll mention the rain extends kind of, in scattered nature, at least all the way through the northern plains by Friday afternoon. But it's this southern tier here, kind of in this warm sector through New Mexico, Texas, at least West Texas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, even into portions of Kansas and Colorado. We could see a couple of stronger storms try to fire off. Again, this is a bit of an unstable environment through this region. We have this low pressure providing plenty of lift and plenty of wind shear here. They could tap into a couple storms, so we will definitely want to watch out for that. And you'll even notice that here Friday evening, some of these storms, again, very small on the map, but kind of begin to fire up into this region. So again, just watching for that, knowing that there is a severe weather potential and kind of just a good old-fashioned fall storm. Snow for some folks, severe weather for others, kind of what you would expect this time of year. Look at that snow just continuing. This is overnight Friday into Saturday. We'll move this to a long-range model to the GFS, and it's more of the same, just mountain snow and potential severe weather here into portions of New Mexico and Texas through our Saturday afternoon and then into Sunday before finally the storm kind of kicks it on out of here and we clear out west by early next week. All right, how much snow are we talking here? Well, it could be a lot in places. I mean, it could be, and this is, I should add, this is the blend of National Weather Service models, but places out here, I mean, we could see more than a foot of snow through some of the higher terrains of Wyoming. Yellowstone, I think, going to pick up on some pretty good snow totals out of this. Even the mountains of Idaho and Montana here, kind of through Missoula southbound, could see some snow out of this. And not to forget you folks into the Cascades here, some snow from the mountains of Oregon up through the state of Washington. And, I really need to get a geography book and study my mountain ranges out here a little bit more. I was watching my buddy Mitch's video, and he's really good with these mountains. My geography is a little bit better back east, but I definitely got to get better out here. And by the way, I would love to visit the Rockies sometime. That's something I've never done that I'm going to have to do at some point. So a little side tangent there, but weather's slow, so we got time. So might as well talk when my heart tells me to. Anyway, snowfall, again, yeah, plenty of it out here into these higher terrains. Really going to jumpstart ski season. Even the southern Rockies, we could get heavy snow as far south as Arizona out of this. These higher terrains north of Flagstaff, a half a foot to a foot of snow. Same story for some of these mountain ranges into New Mexico. But check out this area down into portions of south. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the mountain range on my phone and trying to talk at the same time. But here through southeastern Colorado or southwestern Colorado, again, this is what happens when I try to multitask. Let's see if we can get a mountain range here. San Juan Mountains, that sounds about right. Yeah, the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. We could be counting the snow in feet by the time all is said and done. Maybe 2, 3, even 4 feet of snow on some of these peaks. So again, more than enough to kind of get ski season going. And you can even see that out here towards the Rockies just to the west of Denver, maybe upwards of a foot of snow. Denver itself and kind of the foothills of Colorado, this one isn't going to be your storm, but you'll definitely be able to see the white on tops of the mountains when you go outside and look west by the time we get into this weekend. All right, severe weather. Again, like I talked about, starting tomorrow, we do have a marginal risk here through portions of eastern New Mexico. But again, I would just kind of go off of this entire area that I have circled. These are going to be very isolated in nature. These storms, not everyone's going to see them, but anyone in that circle, I would say, has a shot at a severe thunderstorm with all hazards on the table. That includes maybe an isolated tornado. Some very large hail could be possible with all of this cold air funneling in. And some strong straight line winds as usual. And that continues Saturday, really through some of the same regions as that low pressure kind of stalls out a little bit and kind of just meanders around. So that is something that we need to watch for sure. All right, so as I mentioned, this low pressure kind of hangs around for a while, but then eventually kind of gets kicked out here over the Great Plains. You'll notice here's that trough axis left over, but we kind of lose that divergence aloft. The storm kind of, struggles to continue to strengthen here, and we could just see a couple showers through the Great Plains. This is Monday afternoon, maybe even into the Midwest, but that storm system really dies out as, again, that upper level support kind of moves away, and that gets us into next week. So what's on the horizon for next week? Well, a lot of our models are suggesting another trough could try to impact the east, but this one not digging nearly as far south as the one we saw maybe a week ago. And the one that we saw earlier this week, this one kind of just clipping the northeast, but could bring a couple of rain showers through Michigan, eastern Canada, and maybe the northeast by the middle of next week. But I tell you folks, things look dry. This gets us all the way into 10 days from now. And there's just not any rain in sight. And that is, again, something that has me concerned for sure as we go through the next little bit. And I'm actually going to call a bit of an audible here. We're going to change up the map. We'll talk about temperatures, but let's talk about the very long run because, again, us in the East, you're probably wondering, well, give me a reason to watch your video, Gerald, because every day you're just telling me the same thing. It's not going to rain and the temperature is going to be cold one day and then it's going to warm up. Well, let's talk about way out towards Halloween. Now, this is the latest GFS model, and I'll move this ahead into time. Again, all that orange, that's a ridge in the east that is kind of building. There's our storm in the Four Corners region. Again, kind of gets pulled northward. By next week, just kind of good old-fashioned boring zonal flow, which is just going to mean kind of average to mild temperatures and relatively dry conditions through the middle of next week. Now, you do notice there's that trough to the north that tries to, again, just sneak on through maybe the extreme northern tier of the country. But after that, again, things moderate, and then we get about 10 days from now, and you're wondering, well, again, what is happening? There is nothing. This is October 27th. This is about as zonal and about as boring of a weather pattern as you can get, especially for fall time when things, generally become a bit more stormy. The latest GFS, though, after that does bring a big time cold shot. A huge trough more than 10 days out from now. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not. And if I show you the ensembles, which I think is also useful to show, in fact, we'll zoom this out and look at a continental scale. We'll move this out to the same time frame. Again, this is about 10 days from now. Again, very boring zonal flow over much of the country. And then the ensembles for the GFS do dump a big time trough, but it's out west instead of east. So I do think about 10 plus days from now, we'll see a return to stormy weather. The question is where? And I was reading on Twitter, Eric Webb, who is a very smart meteorologist and does great with long range forecasting. I didn't read the entire, I read the entire post, so I didn't write down the key points. But one thing that he mentioned was we could very well see a big swing in the long-term guidance with the current pattern we're seeing and the teleconnections ongoing. Excuse me. So again, just kind of stay tuned because things could change pretty quickly here in the long run. And what I will tell you is what goes up must come down, and what stays sideways has to go up or down eventually in the world of weather. It cannot stay boring forever. And granted, I think we kind of deserve a little bit of boring weather after the crazy hurricane season we've had. But just, stay tuned and, come back for details because, again, things can change in a heartbeat. All right, temperatures. This weekend in the east, again, beginning to moderate. You'll notice that red coming back into the forecast. And by the time we get to next, we'll move this to next Wednesday afternoon. Again, that zonal flow takes over and we are back to above average temperatures really everywhere in the country. Again, maybe a tiny cold front trying to swing on through. And I'll kind of just even draw it out like this. Just trying to swing on through maybe the extreme northern tier of the country. You folks in the UP of Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into the Northeast. I could get a bit of a cool down out of that, but generally speaking, warm temperatures are on the horizon after this weekend. Again, staying chilly through the weekend, but after that, we're right back to above average temperatures in the long run. So again, just warm temperatures here in the long run. It is going to stay cool through the weekend, but after that, things warm up pretty considerably by the time we get into this weekend. Now, the other concern is a lack of rainfall. This is our blend of models for the next 10 days. And I mean, look at this, not an ounce of rain from Maine all the way down to Ohio, West Virginia, the Carolinas, through much of the Southeast. And I did just check the drought monitor. Again, I'm going to get an update today. But I mean, you folks are crazy dry up into this region through Ohio, West Virginia. I mean, we're already in severe drought. You go another 10 days without rain and relatively warm temperatures. That's not good for sure. And we're going to need to hope for some rain here on down the pipeline. But all right, folks, that's all I got for you on this Thursday. Hopefully you found some use in it. And if you did, definitely let me know. With that said, though, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy it. Stay safe out there. And I'll see you all tomorrow.